Hi, this is Jay Holston with Moving the Needle, and I'm talking today with Bill Hawfield, and what we're speaking about is advisory boards, for why a company might want to have an advisory board. And let's make that my first question. Why would a company want to go to the work of setting up an advisory board?
Well, there are at least two or three different reasons people that in my experience of serving on about 40 boards so far, why they set these boards up. One is that they have some outcomes that they feel they can't get to with their current structure. So there may be family issues that are involved in where they're going with the business. Do you keep the business? Do you sell the business? Do you grow it and take risks? Do you distribute dividends? All these questions that normally come with running a company. And sometimes you can't just resolve it with the people you've been with all the time. Mm-hmm. You need to have outside people who have been there, done that, or suffered the same kind of things you have, and at least can say, if you do that, it's going to hurt.
Very true.
So I would say the two primary reasons are, I want to get my company ready for sale in the next 2 to 3 years. And how do we do that? And so to do that, we start talking about what builds value in a company. And from there we say, if these things drive the value in your company, let's get some outside help on any one of those factors that drive your company's value, and having a regular, consistent dialogue with them called a board meeting once a quarter. And we just keep looking at the things, again, that are most important to building value in the company, and from there make sure they get executed. So that's one, is get a company ready for sale and go through all the steps that are necessary. Another one is forget about selling the company. What is good governance about? How do you govern a company so it's a good, sustainable, solid company for the family, for the employees that are there now, for the owners there now, and it could be 30 years from now before a company sells. Every company does sell eventually, but so getting that process going of delivering a sustainable value company, the board process starts off with saying, well, where do you want to go? How are you going to get there? How much money is it going to take? What kind of risk are you going to take? And just goes through the whole process of putting together a plan for building sustainable value, which is different than building a P&L. It's more about, I can go and not make any money and still build a valuable company. Many tech companies are that way. They build a great model, they never make any money, they sell for $1 billion. Maybe you'll have that luck someday. But an outside group can say, here are the kind of things that build value, and that is sustainable for everybody that is a stakeholder in that company. That's what a board process should do for you.
Interesting. So if you're a company, let's say it's between 10 and 50 million in revenue, mm-hmm. How many people would you recommend having on the board?
I've done boards with just 2 as outsiders. Never go below 2. So companies that try to bring in one outside advisor, that really doesn't work in a group of 6 insiders and 1 outsider. But if you have at least 2 outsiders that say, that's a fact, from our view from the outside, it carries a lot more weight in the discussion. So start with at least 2, and I would say probably a maximum of 5 outside advisors. People go larger, and maybe that'll work for them, but depending on the kind of board, if you have 5 outsiders and you have 2 or 3 or 4 insiders, you've got 8 or 9 people in a group, and that's about as much as you want to go to get decisions made quickly, to make sure you've got a holistic view of the problem and the company. So let's say on average, I'm saying 3 to 4 is the average, I would say.
That's the outsiders, but also the same is kind of so the total group might be somewhere between 7 and 9.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. What about from your experience, what are some of the financial costs associated with setting up an advisory board?
My belief is you can attract experienced people who have their own money to come in, and most of these people are wealthy people. They've already made it, and so money is not the key. The amount of money is not the key. First of all, start with compensation. There should be meaningful conversation. The ownership should be meaningful to the owner. Otherwise, he or she would just say, it's free advice. Do I have to execute that? If they pay something, there's a commitment from the owner. Secondly, the people that are receiving the money at a board level feel respected, that they are business people, and there's some compensation for being in a meeting. My compensation that I run into in Los Angeles area and in New York, where I serve on some boards, is somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a quarter, and that includes a meeting. So I would come to a meeting, prepare the day before, come to the meeting, and then spend time outside the meeting on phone calls or anything that the owner wants to talk about that comes out of the meeting. And so for that, the owner gets essentially about half of an admin it gets me, for about the cost of half of an admin, to do those kind of things with the board, for him and the board at $3,000 to $5,000 a quarter. In addition to that, some companies are set up to sell, and they want really full attention from their board of advisors. Anybody they got, they want them right here, and I'm going to grab you quickly, and you shouldn't resist. And one way they get that is by saying, I'll give you a piece of the action in some way if the company sells. And I call that value participation. And it's not stock, it's more of a commitment from the owner saying, if I sell for this price, under these terms or conditions that he describes as acceptable to him, then at a certain point in the valuation, the board gets a piece of the action. And I'll throw out a number of 2 to 3% of the increase in the value of a company that the board participates in. They're there when it happens, they actively contribute. The board walks in, the company's already there, they have a certain value, and then the board starts adding value on top of that. So 2 to 3% above the current value of a company when it sells might be something you pay the board as an incentive to get even more attention and time.
Absolutely, very creative and I think probably very effective. Well, definitely appreciate your time. Appreciate you kind of explaining your thoughts on the advisory board. Once again, this is Jay Holston with Moving the Needle, and Bill Hawfield.
Bill Hawfield.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jay.
Appreciate it.